2, 3, 4. In this podcast, you will hear Knights of Vader. Knights of Vader includes, but is not limited to, talk of Star Wars, not ray guns. We can't truly prepare for the jump that follows this song, but hey, we gave it a try. So here's the Knights of Vader. Crystal Fox reports they are divided. Prequel, sequel, canon, love they fighted. I know that we are just musicians tired, and their time is up. So here's the Knights of Vader.
Impressive. Most impressive.
A big thank you to An Insperiority Complex for providing our theme song. Today, it is July 18th, 2021. My name is Zach Weber, and joining me is Russ Ryan.
McClunky.
Hello, Zach. Thanks for having me.
The classics, folks. And Canadian collector, Chris Porteous.
Regardless of what anyone says in the Facebook group, I'm a better collector than all of them.
Indeed. At least Canadian side of the river. And Joe Yazzo.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Alrighty, folks. We have not been back now for 2.5 months, ever since the Wild Bunch premiered back in May the 4th. A lot has happened. Oh, good Lord. We have all sorts of nonsense. We got Hera. We got Boba Fett's Starship. We have Kenobi rumors. We have Boba Fett. So I before we started recording, we've been talking for the last 30 minutes or so. There was a bunch of stuff that repeatedly kept being brought up into the conversation, then followed with, no, save it for the recording, which is usually my job to say that. So before we delve in, I know Chris is very, oh God, how do I say this? Very hot on being cold about the Wild Bunch.
Yeah, I mean, you might say that. I think it's heavily hit or miss, mostly miss. But I don't know if are we going straight there? Or what do you want to do?
Chris, I am giving you controls of the podcast. You tell me where you want to go.
All right, so wonderful.
I want to let the listeners at home know that there's been no one more insistent on getting another Knights of Vader episode out this year than Chris. Chris has been carrying the torch for Knights of Vader in a way that oh God, I think can't be said for anyone. Possibly even myself.
Well, if carrying the torch, if all that qualifies for carrying the torch is bumping a Facebook message thread every couple weeks, I mean, I'm happy to do it.
But Chris, you want to talk about the Instagram account real quick?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I forgot that hasn't been mentioned even once since it existed. So there is a Knights of Vader Instagram account, which conveniently has the exact same name as the former, no longer existent Knights of Vader Instagram account, which is KOV Podcast on Instagram. So there's even posts referencing that account that are now working again because such an account now exists with the original name. Crazy stuff out there. So go ahead and follow KOV Podcast on Instagram if you want some high grade Star Wars memes and maybe
toys. There's a good amount of
that
toys being posted. I know my own personal little Jabba Land has made it on that Instagram account, so you can
exactly
that's there for you.
And quarterly episode notifications at minimum. Yeah, it's good stuff. So so if we're gonna go into the Wild Bunch, what episode just came out? 12? Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
Ryloth Part 2.
Yeah. So the last two episodes we've had Hera as a kid, and our typical French Twi'leks.
Did they get French or hold on? I've been noticed because I just kind of binged the last few to get caught up. Have they always been this French?
Yes. In Clone Wars, they are pretty French, yeah.
But I don't see Bib Fortuna having that French accent and stuff like that. I don't know.
Well, if it were anything but French, somebody would have a problem with it. Just saying. But it's French.
It's way over.
Yeah, but these are, we're seeing Hera's parents, which are characters sort of from Rebels, one of them at least. And, it's sort of interesting that they're trying to use the Bad Batch to sort of blend the continuity between Clone Wars and Rebels, even though it's all super ad hoc. So, It's a
That's
weird
the
choice.
The invisible hat that works in the scenes. Not so invisible, of course, because it's the first name you see when the show ends. But we got a little more hat action too, crossing over with a little Cad Bane action in these last few episodes.
Yeah, Cad Bane showed up very briefly in. Was he in 1 or 2 episodes? I don't know.
He was in
but
2. I think he was in 2.
Yeah, and it seemed like they were sort of relying on I saw some interesting comparisons from like sort of a storyboard perspective with like an unused episode of Clone Wars where like it seemed like, which I just be totally beyond me how you can put a character in a completely new context and sort of design the scene exactly the same as it was in an unused episode in a completely different situation. But people are trying to draw parallels in that regard. Maybe they're just, maybe they're just seeing Jesus in toast, and because like a close up is a close up, you know what I mean? That's on some level. The guy gets in Old West style standoffs, and close up shots are close up shots. So maybe there's not that much to it. The last couple episodes have sort of felt a lot more like Clone Wars to me. Maybe it's because you have this sort of reg clone who the figure is called Captain Ballast, and Zach, remind me what his actual name is in the show.
Hauser,
yeah.
Like Total Recall, Hauser.
Yeah, so Hauser's sort of cool. He's like this like holdover clone who's like you can tell it's like
he's just
sort
Captain
of like
Rex, right? I mean, he's just, what is he? You see him in that's what I think immediately.
Yeah, he's like a relic of the Republic, and it's fun to see how these last few sort of clones who are familiar with the way the Republic did things are sort of living within the Empire. And that you can just tell by looking at them that they haven't got much shelf life left, and that's where we sort of end up at this last episode, which is, I guess, 12 out of 16 for season 1. And basically he was arrested at the end of episode 12. So like, they're moving on, they're getting rid of these guys because they got ideas, and we don't like ideas in the Empire, right? So here's the deal for me is like this last episode's a great example. They're doing stuff, they're like, it's cool, it feels like Clone Wars, but like the big problem for me is like they're doing unnecessary stuff that portrays the Empire as too stupid, in my opinion. Like, Zach, you probably know this character's name too. Who's like this stock Imperial officer guy who's hanging out on Ryloth?
Oh God, Rampart.
Rampart.
So he just goes to whatever planet, and for whatever reason, the Bad Batch also ends up on the same planet. Okay, it's the same guy from earlier in the season, right?
It's a very small universe. Come on, we know how incestuous this is.
Okay, so this guy he has this speech about. Oh man, there's so much stuff going on here. So I don't know if it was it the previous episode where Orn Free Tao got shot in the head, and then they implied in this episode that he was still alive.
Yeah, as soon as he gets shot, they go arrest them for attempted assassination. It's like, you just killed this guy.
They literally showed him take a shot to the head on screen, and
there's a lot of wild death in this too.
Yeah,
and I know this is kind of. At one point, they're using stun grenades, or they're set the Bad Batch has their stuff set to stun, and they're shooting all those scrappers that are trying to take their stuff. They shoot one guy driving a speeder away. The speeder crashes, and he falls down this huge thing. It's like, well, at least he was stunned when you murdered him. It's like they're still murdering people. It's so weird.
I mean, that's fine, because like the stun setting is really bothering me, because it's like
over stun. Everything gets stunned.
How long
stun grenade.
Yeah. But just I'm trying to stay on one track here just for a sec. I sound remotely consistent.
Yeah.
So like,
good luck, Chris. Good luck.
Yeah. So like Ballast, not Ballast. Rampart.
Hauser.
Hunter. Imperial officer.
Admiral Rampart.
Yeah, Rampart. So like he goes on this speech about every time there's a protest or something, round up all the civilians, and I'm like, it's to me, I can't stand how cartoonishly evil they're presenting the Empire. It's like, no wonder these guys lasted like 18 years. Like, they have this legend built up around them, but in the scheme of the galaxy, the Empire existed for like literally 5 minutes. And it's like, I don't like, he's talking about like, well, round up those civilians, round up these ones. It's like, literally, we'll put literally everyone in jail. What are you talking about? Like, where are these hardworking you need these Twi'leks to go out and mine, unobtainium so that you can make tax dollars. Like, he's literally talking about arresting all the civilians, and it's just like, could you stop being a cartoon? I mean, I'm watching it. I see the irony, but it's like, he's so crazy and like cartoonishly evil that it it takes me out of it in the same way that the Bad Batch putting a child in mortal danger on a weekly basis takes me out of it. It's like,
hey, she's part of the team. All right, part of the deal.
It's just unnecessary. Like that speech he went on about, like, then we'll arrest the next group of civilians who protest and the next one. Like, that was not integral to the plot, and it didn't ring like an intelligent leader of any kind. It just seemed like overkill, cartoonish evilness, and like, I don't know if I'm alone.
all the green Twi'leks from all the blue Twi'leks.
Exactly, and and these are very progressive Twi'leks. Like, the men have lower cut shirts than the women. It's just like, they're very enlightened hippie Twi'leks, and they're French. They do things differently over there, and then. But like, when you talk about like jailing all these civilians, like maybe I'm alone and maybe I'm crazy and maybe I'm expecting too much from this show, but like sometimes those sort of speeches are just like, you didn't need to do that. It sounds ridiculous. I don't believe that you could run a functioning empire for longer than 18 years with these policies. Maybe that's just me.
But I think that's where you get like people like Krennic and Tarkin who just constantly like vie for power. Like, that's the thing. Like, I remember this was like a Pablo Hidalgo thread from years ago that like part of like the brilliance of, what was it, Admiral like Zher from like Return of the Jedi was that he kind of like wanted no parts of the power struggle, where like Vader comes to him at the beginning of Jedi and he's like, "We're trying, sir," and that's just kind of like, that's the extent of his ambition. Was that like all these career Imperial officers just wouldn't stop like trying to slit each other's throats.
So like, is this like a post Disney purchase Pablo rant, or
yes,
like?
Yes. Yeah. No, I wouldn't say rant, but this was like, I want to say probably like 2018, maybe
2018 years ago. I was like, whoa, how long has Pablo been on Twitter? But
that whole time since Twitter began. But
I think it was more like the whole idea that like you had like that sort of just like rivalry between like Krennic and like all that. I know even like in a lot of the ancillary media that like takes place like between Sith and Star Wars, that is where like there's a lot of that just like jockeying for power. Like I want like an audience with the Emperor, like the whole thing with like the new I've lost track how many Thrawn trilogies there are now. But like in the Disney first Thrawn trilogy, I know, right? It's like 9 Thrawn. There's 9 Thrawn books now. Now they're like weirdly like we'll talk about that too. The fact that they're weirdly reincorporating like Legends books, and they're pushing that hard. We have to get to that as well. There's a lot to discuss this evening. But no, I think that's the whole thing. There's like, going back to Rampart, is that like, I think he's supposed to be almost like the prototypical like Imperial officer. Is that he's just somebody that's just like getting, like, think about it, it's all so new. Like, think about it, Vader's not even really operating at like anywhere near like an efficient like percentage at this point, like in the Empire. Like Vader is still going through his trials.
Yeah, he's still like shaking in the back of the tank at this point. Like, it's been 5 minutes.
Exactly. So like, I think that's the thing. It's like nobody really knows what's happening right now. The only thing we kind of know, like, we have like a timeline for, and I use the word timeline very loosely, is that like easily like Crosshair and his squad is easily like the prototype of the Death Troopers.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, the whole power struggle thing with I see this as kind of like the dawn of the governors, right? Isn't that what they're building up? Like, is he going to be Governor Rampart? And, this is the it seems like that would be so far off where the governors are taking over for the senators. It seems like this is already happening on Rus Ryloth.
Yeah.
Well, it's years away, actually, but yeah. But it would be, but now that you say that, it would be it can't be this show, but it would maybe Kenobi. I forget when Kenobi's supposed to take place, but like, it would be amazing to see when Tarkin says in episode 4 like that it's literally a one-off line about dismantling the Senate, like seeing that from a sort of Clone Wars / prequel like amount of like omnipotence where you actually see the stuff happening would be amazing.
Would it though? Like, isn't that like the entire like argument against the prequels?
I was about to say that's the
like,
knock on the prequels is the deep political cuts, and it seems like that's why those sequels they didn't even bother, and maybe they thought that bothered people. It's confusing.
But it depends, like who, like what, but like what do you actually think? Like do you think that Episode 1, a ridiculous action movie with like more explosions than like anything else on the market like is too political? Like, I mean, I guess so. Like that's something people say about it.
I think it's also just it's a talking point. Like that's the thing too. Like it's like now that like Star Wars is in this weird sort of just like holding pattern. It's interesting to see like a lot of these like, oh God, articles being written about like the current state of Star Wars. And a lot like, and now like I guess that the prequels are considered like in vogue and you really can't like punch down on them anymore. It's interesting to say like now the generalization like complaint for the prequels is like unnecessary like politicization of Star Wars, as in not like in the real world, but just the idea
laughable
of like
by today's standards. The whole idea of the prequels being judged for being overly political, I think it all comes down.
I mean, hold on, let me rephrase that. That's not the right word I wanted to use. I guess not bureaucratic, just like getting into like the weeds of just like the politics of the world. I didn't mean politicization was the wrong word to use.
But don't you think that it's all like, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. Like, how basic like the majority of the audience is. Like, do you think it all just comes down to the fact that people were sitting there was 17 years of build up, and in the opening crawl before you even see Liam Neeson cutting up robots like hilariously, it says the taxation of trade routes. Like, don't you think it all just comes down to that opening crawl just being like, what are you doing to me? It's been 17 years.
But this is my problem though. I can again not because we have a million things to discuss that are current events. I don't want to get too far into this, but like I don't think the prequels were ever like when it came to like mass audiences, they were never disliked films. They were never like The Phantom Menace was like the second highest grossing movie of all time, like by like the late summer of 1999, like second only to Titanic.
I don't know about that.
It was. That film made like $950 million worldwide.
The whole reason why that The Phantom Menace made that much money was because in years prior you had the special editions come out and people were so hyped because they said, "Ooh, the prequel is coming out." Do you want to know what the highest grossing movie of the year before Phantom Menace was?
Oh, James Bond? No, James Bond came out.
Meet Joe Black.
That was not the highest grossing movie of 1998.
Yes. Want to know why?
You want to know why?
You want to know why? It's the trailer to The Phantom Menace. There were actually stories about people going in paying money for that movie.
Yes.
Joe, Zach wrote his dissertation on this exact topic.
Damn right I did. I'm aware. No, number one film. Oh, I hate that they do box office like this. Of the top film. Oh, why do they do box office like this? It drives me nuts. Oh God, why do they do box office like this?
And
all right, the highest
reason why that movie made any money, Meet Joe Black, was because of the
Brad Pitt's an IRS agent. Okay, here's your top 3 grossing movies of 1998: Armageddon, Saving Private Ryan, and Godzilla. Those are your top 3 highest grossing movies of 98.
Not that
opening
Godzilla.
Weekend.
Yeah, Godzilla. Like, again, you look at it like highest grossing movies. This is worldwide: Armageddon, Saving Private Ryan, Godzilla. And then like there's Something About Mary, which is insane to think a comedy made almost like that much money back in the day.
What a time to be alive! Like Jim Carrey was.
But this is my thing though. Like the same reason why now, like it's weird how like again Rob would love it. It's the goddamn Twin Peaks thing of it's happening again. You just look around. It's like what happened. Like look at the Disney sequel trilogy. Force Awakens to this day is still the highest grossing film domestically of all time. And yet, like when that movie comes out in 2015, it was considered the second coming of Christ. And yet,
it's amazing the pervasiveness that like my brain will not accept that as a fact. Like if you asked me, that with before you just said that, it would have my answer would have been like a Jimmy C movie.
That's the thing. Like not even Endgame. Like Endgame came out 3.5 years after Force Awakens, and Endgame still fell short by like I think $80 million, and that's with a couple years inflation. That's the thing. It's like Force Awakens comes out and it's considered the second coming of Christ. Then a couple years go by, and then it becomes, the sequel trilogy was a disaster. And it's like, no. And that's what happened to the prequels. Like after 2005, it was like you have Attack of the Clones where it took a slump, and the anomaly with the sequel trilogy is that like the Rise of Skywalker didn't rebound, and that's because Disney didn't put the marketing dollars into that film. And I still like it's been now a year and a half. I still cannot get how, like, say what you will about the Rise of Skywalker. I realize as time goes on, I'm the anomaly in that regard because I'm the only person that really carries a torch for that film. But it's the idea that like these movies by the mass audiences were all liked. They might not be it might not be the greatest thing of all time because no movie anymore is the greatest thing of all time. Even Avengers Endgame, we've forgotten about that movie. Nobody talks about like Thanos and all like it's there in the pop culture, but not in the same way that like things in yesteryear were.
But it's not a mystery why that's the case though, right?
And what do you mean? Like, what is that in reference to?
It's like it's literally down to like the calculated nature in which these things are conceived, like from a marketing perspective.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree wholeheartedly though. But like, look at it. Like, oh god, Avengers. That if there was ever a movie that should have sat, quote unquote, on the zeitgeist, it should have been Avengers Endgame, and it had the staying power of like 2.5 months. And then everybody forgot about it. And if you want, hold on a second. You know how I know that's the case? Because like halfway through 2020, when China was just like re-releasing anything with like a pre-established name at the theaters, Avatar retook the highest-grossing film of all time thing by a decent margin worldwide, and nobody cared. None of the Marvel fans got upset. Nobody cared. And that
Avatar, like hot take, Avatar is better than anything in the MCU. That's its own, Chris. That is its own like dissertation. Joe, I'll give you 2 sentences, 3 if you have to, on responding to that, but cap it off at that.
All right. Avatar was a complete movie. All right. Endgame is a different story. You can watch Avatar from start to finish, and you're getting a complete movie there. You're seeing the whole story. All right. Endgame was a continuation to Infinity War. The only reason why Endgame was any good and made any money was because the movie before it.
Yes, Captain Marvel.
And that is what made, because when you see Endgame wasn't as great as everybody says it is. It's a continuation of that story. It's only great because the movie before it was amazing.
Captain Marvel.
I appreciate this supporting argument.
Because you sit there and you look at it, all right? You have an Empire Strikes Back moment with the Avengers. You know, they're at their lowest form. They just lost half the population and all.
I object to like on the Zenger's not with us. I object.
R.I.P. Zenger.
I'm slamming a gavel right now. Like you're talking about the Empire Strikes Back and Avengers at the same time. Like you go to jail right now. What happens next?
Well, you sit there and you look at it though. Empire Strikes Back was a great movie, more so than Return of the Jedi. Are you going to say that's not true?
No, it was pure. My objection is purely related to discussing the MCU at the same time as the original trilogy of Star Wars.
I think what Chris is trying to say is heresy.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
Thank you.
I'm not being mean, Joe.
No, I mean Joe just like bought all his credibility in the world by describing why Avatar is better than anything in the MCU. So like I'm Team Joe from now on.
Okay, the point being, I know what Joe's getting at. Like it's the idea that one was a culmination, one was a complete experience. I get that. But like in the terms of just looking at this as something that's able to capture the zeitgeist, I would imagine that if you probably looked at the people who saw Avengers, if you pulled everybody who saw Avengers Endgame, I think you'd be shocked at how few people who saw that film had seen every Marvel film. I'm not denying that probably the majority had seen Infinity War, but I think would be shocked at probably the fact that the majority of the audience for Endgame probably saw less than 50% of the MCU up until that point.
I'll agree with that. And in the theater for that film on opening night, I remember hearing a conversation in front of me where one guy, right when the opening credits started, he goes, Disney, man, they got everything now. He did not know that Marvel was a Disney thing. And I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of an event movie for people who don't even care about it. Well, not counting Ellie. Sorry, Zenger.
And isn't that interesting? And isn't that interesting that you're seeing a Disney logo at the start of Marvel films, but not Star Wars films?
I don't think any
man. I'm surprised they don't have the 20th Century Fox thing back in now that they own it, because I think
they do.
It no longer exists.
Yeah, the 20th Century Fox thing is back in front of the original trilogy and the prequels.
Oh no, I meant
yeah. But I mean, like new stuff, it no longer exists. It's 20th century films or productions, whatever it is.
Something, yeah.
It looks weird. I don't like it. It's not good.
Right,
you know,
like how Atari is just a merchandise company now for T-shirts.
Exactly. But it just looks slightly off-brand and fake, and it's weird. And it's a damn shame that so many things are under one roof. It's a sign of the end. It's not. It's like I was saying. If for those of you listening who are partaking in the Knights of Vader Facebook group, like I recently posted this Hot Wheels car that is repainted, and it's an existing Hot Wheels Star Wars car that is literally basically a Batmobile shaped like Darth Vader's head. And
I have a few of those, the all black ones already. My kids have a bunch of those.
Okay, kids playing with it is one thing. That shouldn't exist, period. A car shaped like Darth Vader's head. And beyond that, like it was repainted to match the color scheme of Marvel Star Wars #1, and the card for this Hot Wheels car was that comic book. And I just asked the question, like, do you ever think that the Earth wasn't meant to exist this long for stuff like this to happen? And we
got to keep it pure, and we got to have Darth Vader can only be on 70 style vans, because that's
what I'm saying though. But like, you know what I mean? Like, what was okay, so I'm so glad you brought that up, because the Star Wars Collectors Archive podcast, it had a recent episode about vans, and what were they saying to kids in the 70s? You could buy a literally a utility van with like a mural of Star Wars on the side of it. Who is the man who in the 70s who has a utility van with a Star Wars mural spray painted on it?
A guy out having fun,
guy with candy in it.
Hey,
right?
Stay the same age kind of guy. Yeah.
It's the guy we all want to be. You know what I mean? It's the guy we want to be, but we've slowly not become that guy.
Yeah, Lone Star, right? Lone Star.
Exactly. And you compare that to a car shaped like Darth Vader's head, and it's like, where do we lose our way? You know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to say. So like that shouldn't exist, and Disney shouldn't own Marvel and Lucasfilm. It's crazy.
But this is okay. This is where I want to kind of segue a little bit more into like the Boba Fett thing, because that like Boba Fett like Slave One, because this is like more like Disney stuff. But like this is the thing now. George Lucas has a quote from like the mid '80s, like right as like Star Tours was being like a germ of an idea, and he says if I could never do it myself, there's only one company I would trust with Star Wars. And yes, that was like mid '80s Disney, because it was the birth of Michael Eisner. Like gave him the Paramount deal.
I'm gonna let you continue, but that ties in very closely to you go for your like early like 2011, 2012 interactions between Lucas and Bob Iger, and he's saying to Iger, like, if I was gonna sell it, it wouldn't be to anybody else. Like he maintained that perspective for a long time.
Well, and I think it's pretty clear now that I think he regrets selling Star Wars. I think he doesn't regret the fact that it's a burden off his shoulders, but I think he regrets for the legacy. Because again, we've all seen the Charlie Rose interview, and like you can tell that like they forsake Star Wars.
Rest in peace.
Well, yeah.
Charlie Rose. That is
Star Wars or Charlie Rose. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No one's saying R.I.P. to Charlie Rose. Did he get canceled?
Completely.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Him
Off,
with, like,
off
Matt
the
Lauer.
map, like completely gone.
Wait, did he had a Zoom moment or something?
He actually never existed, which is a problematic for referencing this interview.
Oh god. Okay, but this is the chance to finally get into like Slave One. So this is okay. Long story short, they're making another iteration of Slave One for like Lego Mandalorian season 2, and the box art says Boba Fett Starship, and everyone started having their pearl clutching moments. Like the YouTube hate mob is all like hot and bothered. And everyone's like, oh no, it's fine. Then like on StarWars.com, they changed the URL page for Slave 1 to Boba Fett Starship. Everyone really started like pulling their hair out and running. And this is the thing though, is that like this is the nature of the beast of Disney. Like everyone's like again, like not to get into the whole conversation about how politically correct our society is, but like Disney has always been afraid of its own shadow when it comes to these things. Like they've always cut and run when there ever was even the slightest whiff of a potential controversy. Like this has been going, like they've always been afraid as a media company. They've been afraid of the media like forever, and they do everything within their power to avoid quote unquote controversies like this. And considering that the like massive focus that Boba Fett's going to have in the next couple months, because I think about it, we're like what, a month and a half away from like a trailer for the Book of Boba Fett. Like,
True.
so they
have come out December. Is it December release? Like
December.
We're not getting Mando till next year, right?
Yeah.
So can
like
anybody else completely predict how the Slave One renaming is going to come about?
Go ahead, Joe. Joe and I have already discussed this. Go ahead, Joe. Pitch them your idea.
It is not the same ship.
That's a good idea.
Because
I'm gonna let you finish, but wrong.
How long was he in the Starlight Pit?
Long time.
Exactly.
Listen. No. Stop. Couldn't have been more than 2 days.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Elaborate.
Because he's such a great tactician. He's a tactician, just like Omega is, right? And he could tactically get out of that. Bring him to Bad Batch.
All right. So finish your theory, Joe, so I don't rudely interrupt you. But I'll tell you the correct story why the ship's going to be renamed after that.
All right.
Jesus Christ.
I look forward to that. All right. So he sat there, got swallowed up by the Starlight Pit. All right. Do you think Jawas on the planets aren't going to notice that ship that hasn't been off ground in however many days? They're gonna scrounge it. He lost his armor. He lost his ship. I don't think that you're gonna see that. It's the Mandalorian goes. How long does the Mandalorian pick up after Return of the Jedi?
6 years.
6 years. And if he had a spaceship, you don't think he would have gone off planet?
Stop for a second. All right. So, what ship are we seeing in The Mandalorian season 2?
Razor Crest 2.
Fire Spray 39.
Do you have more to that, or is that pretty much the thesis there?
In the other movies I've seen, I haven't really seen the interior of the Slave One, except for maybe Attack of the Clones. I don't know if it's set up the same way.
It's consistent with Attack of the Clones.
That and Slave One was never actually noted, actually given a name in the movies.
That's what I wanted to break up. Has it ever been said?
No,
I don't know if it was said.
Okay, so it is the Slave One in canon. It is referenced in canon comic books and other material that is the name of the ship since Disney has purchased the company. All right, you ready for the real reason why it's going to happen?
Sure.
Because he was in the Sarlacc for 3 years saying, "He's trying to eat me."
Exactly. So this is the thing, right? Like, so Tamira Morrison did for those of you who follow your MCU, which I don't watch the movies, but I see the social media nonsense. So you had a guy named Alfred Molina, like recently accidentally, spoiler alert, a bunch of stuff that's going to happen, connecting the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies to a new Spider-Man movie that's going to happen. Because he's an actor and he doesn't understand that these fans are lunatics and you must keep everything very quiet. So Tamira Morrison did a similar thing where he said that we're gonna see what Boba Fett's been up to in like all of the gaps of his cinematic life, like where he was when we didn't see him in the original trilogy, like during gaps in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So I think that this is really going to come down to, it's not going to be a direct continuation of the scene we saw at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. And it's going to be him surviving the Sarlacc pit. And that's going to, like, they're going to put, my take on this is they're going to paint that as he's getting a new lease on life. And it's going to be an amazing struggle for him to get out of there. And the ideological shift that occurs within him due to this struggle is going to cause him to rename the Slave One, because it's no longer the Slave One. He's got a new lease on life. It's going to be like, it's going to be something
Chris.
Stupid like the Phoenix or something like that. It's going to be
Chris, to be fair, when I asked Joe to like pitch his thing, this is like verbatim what he told me, like in real life. Because he's like, yeah, this is exactly what it's gonna be. It's like he has a new lease on life, and it's gonna be called, like, instead of Slave One, like Liberator One.
But he said it's a different ship. Like, why would you ever think it's a different ship?
I wasn't okay. Joe changed Joe's opinion or theory changed since last time I spoke to him about this, because we had like a 10-minute conversation about this.
We had a 10-minute conversation, and we also said that I don't think it's Boba Fett that you saw in The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, that too.
Whoa.
Oh god, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense that it's a different ship.
But Chris, to your point, I wanted to ask if they are going to be showing all these elements, is there a chance you think Daniel Logan is going to show up as a skinnier, younger Boba?
0%.
Okay, just checking. He's too busy on the convention circuit, right? There's too many autographs to be.
I mean, listen, like I love that guy's commitment, but like, how glad is everyone on Earth that Tamir Morrison is Boba Fett and not him?
Indifferent? Like I don't know. This is my thing though, because like we didn't really get into, like, we were so kind of just caught up in the hype of like the latter like episodes of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Is it like I've rewatched a bunch of that stuff, and I love how sparingly Boba Fett is used. Like he's in like every episode, like of those last 4, he's in it for maybe like a minute out of like anywhere from 20 to like 40 minutes, like combined screen time in each like chapter.
He's like a getaway guy for the most part.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
I know where you're going. Driver. I know where you're going, but like, let's remember the fact that Favreau The Mandalorian was supposed to be the Boba Fett show, if we're to believe rumors.
Yeah.
And the Boba Fett show is happening now.
Which is scary, that means they haven't learned any of their lessons from Solo.
I mean, can you go
put Solo in it to fix it? You see, it all is going to work itself out. Those two are going to fix each other.
Solo's going to show up in Calrissian Endor, and that's where you're going to see Maul, and you're going to see what's her name, Kira. Now, like, Kira's been like reintroduced back into canon, like in a comic book. And what's her name? The high pitched girl that
canon the whole time, but I don't know what you're saying.
No, I mean, like, okay, but she reappeared. Like, as in the sense of, like, she like drives off into the sunset a la Paul Walker and Solo, except like a lot sadder, and then like more melancholy, and then like for what now 3 years she's been MIA from canon.
Do you ever think about? Okay, this is a little bit of a tangent, but do you ever think about the fact that like Lucas wanted Darth Maul to be like the antagonist of the sequel trilogy?
He said apparently the archive books claim that, and I know that's what you're referencing, but that feels like Lucas now, like years later, being like, yeah, like I was gonna see if you nerds would just like stop bullying me, you have gotten Darth Maul as like the villain of the sequel trilogy.
Well, hold on,
I don't believe that.
I do believe that. You know why? Because in the Art of the Force Awakens, there's pre-production work for Episode 7 that while Lucas was still integral, that shows Darth Maul with Darth Talon as his apprentice, and it's in this printed Disney era book as like this is what we were talking about at the time. So like I do believe that, and not only that, but like the idea of like the new Jedi Order facing off against a crazed underworld led by Darth Maul, who was being set up while Lucas was still in charge in the Clone Wars as like the leader of the underworld. totally makes sense to me because it's a natural progression of where the media was contemporary at the time.
It's almost like Shadow of the Empire type stuff. Put him in there instead of Prince Zizor.
And it's another like, where were they during the OT kind of thing you got to do with more, not just shows, but with the sequel trilogy itself.
It is weird as a film because it's like, when did we last see Darth Maul? I do understand the idea that like, if you did episode 7 with like Darth Maul reemerging somehow as the leader of the underworld, you do have to do some legwork to explain how he's not dead, because most of those people aren't going to have watched Clone Wars, but is that legwork worth it for having a trilogy that has a different sort of cadence than the one before it? You know what I mean? Chronologically, the one before it. You know what I mean?
It feels too Clone Wars-y cartoony to work. That's a good thing that Disney was so scared of prequel-esque things that they were like, no way are we putting the prequel villain in here.
We'll never know.
Well, that's okay, but this is the weird.
Wait for Star Wars What If 2023. We will find out.
Well, that's what Visions is going to be, to like a lesser, like a more.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Version.
Vision.
I'm excited for that, honestly. I'm genuinely excited for that. Like, no, there's no ounce of cynicism in what I'm saying right now, which is like, I know it's like very hard to believe for like any of you who are on this recording right now, but like that actually, it like I watched the like sort of launch video for that, and like it genuinely seemed weird enough, and the fact that they're like, listen, let's just literally get Japanese anime people to make this stuff, and it's not even going to be canon. Like, my
only problem with that is like none of the animators got on rollerblades and kind of did nothing. So I was kind of like, I don't know if it's gonna be as good. But some of the other reveals we've had, I don't even see one one flight pad or anything in this.
Listen.
Okay, hold on a sec. We have to appreciate that reference, because that was just like a god tier reference right there. Because I'm listening to this.
Oh my god!
I'm like, was he talking about roller skates? Then like it came back to me like a flashback. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing that they did. That was so horribly misguided on a marketing level.
Oh, it's still coming. That thing's coming down the pike, right?
Hold on. This is why Rus is a national treasure, and no one will appreciate him while he's alive. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, but like, someday people will realize that he's a national treasure, and the few of you listening to this will realize that like as it's happening. But realistically, like, clearly Rogue Squadron is going to fail horribly, and it's going to be weird.
It's never going to. That's never going to happen. At least in the incarnation that. Because think of how many times Lucasfilm has done this, and like I said, I know like we've said this numerous times now, but how many times have they promised something because something of the moment seems hot, and then a couple of years go by and they get a whiff of something else that's popular, and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do that instead. Like, think about it. Like, oh god, when they announced the Rian Johnson trilogy, was Mandalorian like that wasn't even in like pre-production yet when
the
they
Game of
like
Thrones guys
that too.
Do you ever wonder like that they like on some level whoever's in charge of announcements doesn't realize how long it takes to make a movie? Like it seems like there's this weird disconnect of like the guy who made that announcement is 24 years old and he has no idea what he's talking about.
But
you know what I mean?
This is the thing, though. I don't think it's that. I guess everyone likes to look at Lucasfilm like as if they're incompetent. I don't think anybody who's in charge of the executive suite over there is incompetent. I think Disney, as in the studio, and this is I want to bring this up, so like everyone just hold on to their tangents for just 1 second. I talked about this a lot with The Rise of Skywalker when that was being released. I think Disney, as in the studio element, the people that are above Kevin Feige, above Kathleen Kennedy, above Pixar. I don't know who's running Pixar right now once they got rid of John Lasseter. I think they're giving the individual studios benchmarks, as in you have to have an announcement by this date. You have to have this by that date. It doesn't matter if it ever comes to fruition. You just got to throw something out there, whatever it be, whether it be a book, announcement, video game. It's just something needs to come out at a specific time. And this is my theory behind this, is that like in peek behind the curtain for Cinemoddities, at some point in September, we're doing the Henry Selick series that everybody knows. That's that's the director behind Nightmare Before Christmas, James the Giant Peach.
I thought you were talking. I'm getting you confused with John Sakic. What's his name from Godfather? Sorry.
Who?
John, the guy who was in 4 movies and then
James
passed
Caan?
away. No, the guy was in 4 movies and passed away. He was in like Dog Day Afternoon and The Godfather and
Fredo.
the Christopher Walken one. Yeah, Fredo, of course.
Fredo.
John Case.
No, not him, Russ.
I would say that's some highbrow stuff you're getting into at Cinemoddities. Those were all his knock was that every movie. Well, not knock that every movie he was in was nominated for Best Picture, but okay.
Indeed, brilliant tangent, Russ. I'll forgive you for that.
Sorry, you said no tangents.
10 points to Gryffindor. No, the point being is that like Henry Selick, he also did Coraline. He was part of the Disney family, like he got chased out after James and the Giant Peach kind of bombed. But back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, they brought him back in. He was going to direct a movie called The Shadow King, another stop motion movie, very similar to like something like a Paranorman, Coraline in that same vein. But what happened was, as he was making this movie, they were animating, filming the movie. This is the same time period in the wake of John Carter, Mars Needs Moms, all of that, where the studio head, Rich Ross, got unabashedly fired, and they brought in Alan Horn, who was the former Warner Brothers studio executive who heralded, shepherded in the Harry Potter franchise. He was retired, and they brought him out of retirement and put him in charge of Walt Disney Studios. And and what he did to the Shadow King, like apparently they already had sunk $50 million into this movie. They were in production, and he just unabashedly canceled it. Just canceled it, and basically told Henry Selick, sorry, the market isn't here for this sort of thing. Go, and the one caveat that they did get, semblance of empathy was they told Selick he could shop the project around somewhere else. Long story short, that didn't come to pass. But everybody likes to look at Kathleen Kennedy as if she's just this kind of like dimwit. Like she's a combination between the dumbest person in the room, yet the most malevolent person in the room. And those two things really don't overlap too well. And as time goes on, the more and more I keep just thinking about Disney era Star Wars, I think Alan Horn is your villain here. Like if you want a villain.
You haven't seen Kathleen Kennedy's office. She doesn't have a single toy in there. What are you talking about?
I know. And she doesn't know that they have comic books.
Believe it.
Games. I know.
I'm glad you said that, Zach, because that's the real point.
But that's the thing, though, is that like I think Alan Horn, like when you think about all these things that just come across as just like arbitrary, like this, everyone's like, oh, Pablo Hidalgo and Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy are writing this stuff. It's like, no, folks, they're listening to orders from Alan Horn. And I also have, like, we all know that Bob Iger was very, very hands-on with Star Wars in a way that he wasn't with anything else in the company. Now that for the most part, he's taken a back seat with his retirement in the next couple months, it seems Bob Chapek, the new CEO, is nowhere near as hands-on or just like has to micromanage Star Wars as Iger felt he had to, which seems to be, as of right now, a good thing. At least now that like Chapek's been in charge now for over a year and there's been infinitely less problems as there's been for the last how many years. That could be the fact there's not as much stuff in the pipeline. But like when you do get like the awkward announcements with things that are like premature, like whether it be like the Game of Thrones guys or like what's her name, Patty Jenkins.
How quickly we forget about Rangers of the New Republic.
Is this the Cara Dune vehicle that we've all been waiting for?
We don't even know. Like that's the thing. We don't even know if it was Cara Dune. Like we don't know. Like everyone just surmised.
We know.
That.
We know. Come
on. No, we
man.
don't. Like factually speaking, we do not know. Like
it could be about chubby X-wing fighters. Okay,
listen,
maybe it has nothing to do with her.
Here's how you know that was like a crazy time, because it's like
you mean in the distant past of December,
the restocking of Cara Dune figures was stopped. Like, what kind of madman does something like that?
But listen. You know who makes those decisions? Somebody who has a lot of power. A studio head would not think about it. A studio head does not have the time to call up Hasbro and Funko and say, I want you to basically push these things off the side of the barge a la the helicopters during Vietnam. They're not like a studio head doesn't have time for that. That is somebody very, very high up that just wants damage control and just makes a phone call and says, cancel it, click. And that's the thing. Like it just feels like there's a like much like how like I feel like Kathleen Kennedy is kind of like the Snoke to Alan Hord's like Emperor. Like that's what I feel like at this point. Like Kathleen Kennedy is just kind of the face of evil, but I don't think she really has any sort of meaningful power. Like she has like she can get things done, but I think at the same day she's following orders like everybody else is. Like to think that like somehow that like she's no more or less in charge than she was 5 years ago, in my humble opinion.
I heard she was getting replaced.
Yeah, every day she's getting replaced, and yet she's somehow still there. She's been there now. Think about it. Like at like next October, as in like 2022, she'll be at the head of Lucasfilm for 10 years. Let that sink in. And yet she's being replaced now pretty much every day since December 2017.
She's getting that Indiana Jones movie made. You know it's happening. I mean, we've been promised it forever. It's happening.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Like, can you be less excited for anything on Earth?
No, not really. And I'm still gonna say that I don't care how much they film. That movie's not happening. Something's gonna happen.
It's not real. Listen, when it's an illusion. I know there's been set photos. Literally, there's been set photos that were from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that were claimed to be the new set photos. Like that's where we're at this point.
Harrison Ford deliberately injured himself again, not that to make another Disney movie.
Yeah, and not only that, but like let's get real about Spielberg for a second, like involvement with this movie. The story was that he left over creative differences. Does that mean that he wanted anything interesting to happen in the story and that wasn't going to work for them? So they had
How's Indiana Jones going to work without Spielberg or Lucas? Like, what's even the point? Let me really go let Harrison Ford write it?
Because the general audience doesn't know.
Flies a lot more in this one, kids.
Okay, I'm glad Chris is bringing up this Indiana Jones thing, because look at it this way: Kathleen Kennedy and Spielberg have been collaborators for what, 30, 40 years now?
Easily.
Does anybody think that if Steven Spielberg comes to her with ideas for Indiana Jones 5, that she realistically is telling him no? You know who's telling him no?
But they let Spielberg go, though.
Because, you know why?
Spielberg was attached for a long time.
I know. And you know who makes that decision? The person that's in charge of the entire studio. That's the person who makes that decision.
Bob Iger, I'm not sending Indiana Jones to the moon to search for relics. I don't care if it's the 60s. He is not sneaking on the Apollo mission, Kathleen.
Thank you for referencing a photo of the set that has confirmed that Indiana Jones 5 takes place in 1969, which is
going to the moon. I'm telling you,
less time has passed in the Indiana Jones universe than has happened in real life, which was the case with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as well. But Harrison Ford just doesn't. He's still doing good, and we can believe that he's 5 or 6 years younger than he actually is. I guess
that's vanity. Like, make me 52, kids.
Yeah, but it's just gonna be like horribly uninteresting and unproductive in any way. And it's just a shame that it's like, so like what kind of creative differences do you imagine separated Spielberg from the process? Like it literally came down to story. Like it has to have.
Well, yeah. Well, okay, but look at it this way though. Spielberg is one of the very few filmmakers left in Hollywood that has like carte blanche, like clout cachet. And Disney is a company that lives exclusively based off market research. So Spielberg goes to them and says, okay, I have this idea where X, Y, and Z happens. They're good. Like the studio will look at the market research, and if those things don't align, they're going to say, sorry, we can't do it. Like that's the thing. You know why you're getting a Boba Fett TV show? Because the market research said it was ready for it. You know why you're getting a Rogue Squadron show? Because when they probably went and looked at the algorithm on Twitter and Facebook for how many times the words Rogue and Squadron were used, it probably met the criteria for greenlighting a film. Like, that's the thing. Like, none of these, like, going back to the Lucas comments from Charlie Rose, everything is a calculated decision. Nothing is artistic whim or shooting from the hip. Everything is what the market research or the quote unquote algorithm, because we live in that age now, like, states. That's why everything happens a particular way. And I think that's why, like, as time goes on, more and more filmmakers like are getting like disenchanted with like Disney. Because even like I know it's a lot of conversations have come up now with like Marvel and stuff. Like, you look at the original roster of like Marvel Phase 1 directors: Joe Johnston, Kenneth Branagh, Jon Favreau, Joss Whedon. And then, like,
Inventor of Boba Fett.
Exactly, which is kind of a shame they never let Joe Johnston get involved with the Boba Fett like property, because he's always wanted to do that. But that's a topic for another day. But like, you look at who they're hiring now as filmmakers for these new Marvel things. Like, it's not even like the Colin Trevorrows or the Josh Tranks, where like they had one like big film and then they get like thrown into like the giant, just like $300 million mess. They're just hiring people off the street now that basically did like like a film, like a film on YouTube. And they're like, here you go.
Peyton Reed, leave him alone.
Peyton Reed's a god. After like the Loki finale, and considering that like the ending of that is going to tie in very directly with Ant-Man 3, ooh, he better stick that landing, man, because there's going to be a lot, like, narratively speaking, writing on that film.
I'm so glad I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'll give you, Chris, like, not to, because I don't want to give anything away for the Loki finale. The Loki finale actually is like the kind of like moral quandary that you would want, like, in like it's the sort of stuff that you would expect in Rogue One that we didn't get. Like imagine the whole thing about like the idea of like Galen Erso working for the Empire, something that was like glossed over in like one sequence that was like clearly reshot and like lasted like 40 seconds. That is basically the entire like climax for the Loki series. It's like, oh God, what is the moral dilemma of like making this decision? There's like consequences for making this decision. That's the sort of stuff that I'm like, it's weird to think of it this way, but I think with the more and more like moving targets and properties that Disney just like keeps insisting on with this godforsaken streaming service, it's like what Leia says in Star Wars. Like, the more you tighten your grip, the more systems will slip through your fingers. I think like when there's just one movie in production, they are exclusively focused on micromanaging that into the ground. But when there's like 2 movies in development, 5 like Disney Plus shows, they can, never mind like the 6 dozen things Marvel has going on Disney Plus. I think it's harder for them to just harp on Star Wars. So in a weird way, it might just be that thing of like they can't focus on everything, no matter how big they are. They can't micromanage everything all at once, and that might be the saving grace of Star Wars.
Regional directors shall oversee these projects. We shall. Okay.
The regional governors will take control of the systems.
10 points.
Oh God. But no, like I said, I think that's, like I said, getting back to like visions and things like that. That's kind of the hope, is that like they just start like spitballing and just seeing like where things will take us. But then like they like put out the trailer for Visions. Then like 2 days later, like, oh, there's gonna be a Visions tie-in novel. And I'm like, isn't that like defeating the purpose of Visions? God. A tie-in novel?
I totally
came here to be entertained, not to read.
I totally missed that. I totally missed that, and the idea that they're going to be able to like just hire like some what's the nice way to say it? Some absolute yes man to write this Visions tie-in novel that they think is going to like tie in
the favorite part of anyone's
anyway to this show.
The best thing about anime is always the novelizations. I mean, that's why
everyone knows that.
In the anime, right?
Not the backwards flipping manga novel that matches up exactly to the story beats of the show, right?
Oh, I'm reading it the right way. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing, right? It's like it's hard to imagine that's the thing. They really, in that teaser video for Visions, they really played up the fact that like it's not just white people like making anime shows. Like we found Japanese content creators who really are at the peak of the art, and they're going to do this stuff. And the idea that you can draft those people into a sort of by the numbers way of content creation is like mind-numbing to me, and I don't believe it's even possible. And the fact that they're going to say that you can have a novelization that sort of ties in narratively with that show is like, first of all, the shows are supposed to be like one-offs, like they're not connected at all,
They're
right?
vignettes. They're like, it's very unintentionally similar to what like Tarkovsky's like Clone Wars was.
For
It was
now.
well, okay. I'm glad
For
you said
now.
that. I'm glad you said that, Joe, because I have a question for the lot of you. Is that, let's say, in whether as a whole or one of these individual stories from Visions just takes off. Let's just say it just everybody gets hot and bothered by it. What does Lucasfilm do?
Soft reboot. Follows that line. That's what's going to happen.
About
The
time.
one thing that you have to realize too is they're going into the multiverse aspect that they're going into Marvel. It's not an original idea. Hey, it's going to work for this. Why don't we do it for that? So what they're trying to do is they're making a bunch of different cakes and hoping someone will eat some of them. But that's the thing, is that's where everything is focusing. You look at anything Marvel, it's all about the multiverse now. You got Into the Spider-Verse. You have them sitting there, and there was articles I was reading on Facebook that they're thinking about, oh, well, the second trilogy didn't really exist because it all came from the mirror that Rey looked into, and that's part of the multiverse. And
Let's be clear about that. What the idea was that the sequel trilogy didn't exist because it exists only in the universe where Ahsoka died, right? Was that the theory
Something
for a
like
while?
that, yeah.
Which, like, I love it. It's not true, but like it makes, it's only in first of all, like I think Ahsoka's like incredibly overrated. Like, let's not start that. I feel like we're mostly all gonna agree about that.
it's like
But
the
in
OP Jedi right there.
Yeah, but in a universe where she's the best character ever and the savior of Star Wars, the sequel trilogy is what we would get in a universe where she died. but that was a lovely theory, and it's almost like they set up Rebels for that to be real. But I don't buy it for 1 second. I don't think they would ever throw their own team under the bus in that way.
Well, isn't the next season of The Mandalorian just supposed to almost be led by Ahsoka? Is that, or is that just some clickbait that I'm falling for because there's not much going on?
But isn't that its own show? Like, there's an announced show that's just called Ahsoka.
Yeah.
They're
It's
hoping
gonna
people
be-
forgot about that already. I think that may be going the way of some of these other ones.
No, there's too much money being poured into that. As of right now, in my humble opinion, the only Star Wars projects I feel that we are going to get, we're getting Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, we're getting Mandalorian season 3, we're getting Ahsoka, and everything, a Bad Batch, obviously.
Old Ben.
Oh, Kenobi, excuse me, Calrissian Endor. Other than that, I would say everything else is a giant question mark. Like, Acolyte apparently is in pre-production right now, because you had the comment where, like, apparently there's like one person in the writer's room out of like 3 dozen that had never seen a Star Wars like film, and the internet once again went through like an entire, like, the fandom went through another like pearl clutching moment. Where,
hold on. So if you think for a minute that narrative wasn't a calculated, presented thing by Disney,
Oh,
like,
it was.
It is, but it's just like, who are you people that you think this is a good idea to say?
You know what? Yes, you know why? You know why they did that? Because it got Star Wars into the news cycle for one day. Guess what? It got Star Wars an X amount of hits, clicks, mentions on social media, and that's all that mattered. Because guess what? In the marketing plan, just overall for Star Wars, that was a day where something needed to happen. And guess what? The media did its job. They basically lobbed the ball over the plate, and the media just took it and rammed it with it.
I like what you're saying, but I don't think the average person has any clue that Acolyte is any separate thing than what's going on right now.
But this is the thing, though, Chris. Is that, like, remember, the people who are in charge of these marketing agencies, like, I'm sorry, not market, or like in charge of marketing, they know that. So this is the point of that sort of, oh God, tactic, if I can even call it that, is that, okay, someone at Lucasfilm takes this, whatever you want to call it, news, I don't even know what you would call it, news story, just tidbit of information, goes to, I don't even know who wrote the original article, whether it be like Vulture, one of those, and said, here you go. Article gets published, and guess what? It gets the hardcores all riled up. Thus, it's shared on social media. There's images posted from the article on like image social media things where you can't really link to articles like Instagram, all that. YouTube videos are made on it, and it trickles down into the normies feeds. And then guess what? If just one person who that day had not decided they're going to sign up for Disney Plus or rent a Star Wars film from iTunes or go to Best Buy and buy a Blu-ray or anything, it's meant to it's there to stir the pot. That's all it's meant to do.
It's brutal. You're right. But it's like,
it's sickening, but it's the world we live in.
It's literally like, it takes me back to like, do you guys remember when J.J. Abrams said that he basically implied that he's the perfect person. We're going back a long while here. Bear with me, 2009. But he's the perfect person to direct a Star Trek film because he doesn't care about the narrative content. It's like, how can you say that and then also go on to direct 2 Star Wars films? You know what I mean? Like, there's a conflict. It's like it's a headline, but like when you look at it in sort of like a timeline context, it's one of the most insane things that's ever been said.
But to be devil's advocate here for a second, look what happened with what's his name? Oh my God, Tony Gilroy with Rogue One. He was the person I came in, cleaned up Rogue One, and he's been on the record numerous times now where he's like, yeah, I walked into this thing with like no care in the world other than the fact he said the Andor show was a complete mess when he got involved. And no, that was Rogue One.
Are you sure?
Yes. Andor. No. Gilroy is part of the Hollywood establishment. He would never say something like that.
I feel like I'm like so confident
it's
that
Rogue
was a
One.
thing.
It's
Are you
Rogue
sure?
One. Yes, because that's the stories that like he did interviews like years after Rogue One came out, and he's like, yeah, when they called me up, this thing was nothing short of a disaster. And he goes, I had no interest in Star Wars, like on a fan level. Like he's like, as a professional, I cared about it because it's my job. But like as a fan, I had no affinity for any of this. And so I just did what was best for the story. And as we've said numerous times right now, Rogue One is literally probably the least controversial Star Wars thing to ever exist. Disney era or prior.
I can't disagree.
And that's what I mean, though. And that's where like Lucasfilm again, these are multi-billion-dollar like corporations. They're not stupid. Like that's the thing. Like everything is calculated. Nothing is arbitrary. Everything is there for a purpose. And that's why, like, not to go back to Rise of Skywalker, like when you have J.J. Abrams less than 24 hours after the film debuts say, like when some person asked him, like, oh, like, what do you think of the criticisms of the film? He's like, yeah, they're right. And he just throws the film under the bus basically for the next week until he just goes into hiding, like after he signed his Warner Brothers deal. And it was like, that's what happens. Like when like weird things peek through like the curtain, you have to really focus on it. Cause like, that's where you get your glimpses of objectivity. And that even like, and that's the thing, even like we're like in the like lead up to Rise of Skywalker 2, they asked him about like, oh, like why hasn't the original trilogy been released unaltered? And he's like, yeah, I asked about it and they gave me a dumb answer. And like he says that, like I'm paraphrasing, he doesn't say the word dumb. I think he says like unsatisfactory. I know that clip is in one of the episodes from like the Rise of Skywalker like release that we did. But like that's the thing. It's very rare to find any of these people like talk like, oh God, in layman's terms. And when they do, you just really, really have to be listening because like that's like those are your moments where you stare into the sun. It might cost you part of your well-being, but you'll learn so much. And that's just the frustrating thing with like I mean, think about it. Like Disney is like it's kind of like that old the saying that Winston Churchill said where it's like, oh, democracy is the worst form of government except compared to all the others. It's like Disney's the worst studio that could have purchased Star Wars except for all the others. Like would you rather have Warner Brothers controlling this where like now like after like what was it, AT&T bought them, they're now being spun off into their own thing with like Discovery Channel, and then like you have Paramount that just is like betting everything on A Quiet Place. Then you have Universal, who is essentially just the Minions and Fast and Furious factory.
I kind of would have rather have Warner Brothers running the show, but
no, you do not want Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers still doesn't know what to do with DC. Think about how many years now has Warner Brothers had control of DC, and every time they get something successful out of it, they either ruin it or they just prematurely end it.
But is there ever such a But has there ever been such a like public acknowledgement of we messed up than the Snyder Cut though? Like
You know what?
Like,
you know why that got made? Okay, this is my answer to the Snyder Cut. Snyder Cut only got released because that was that. Think about it. The reason why Justice League happened the way it did was because it was rushed out the door because the CEO or the head of the studio, Warner Brothers, was Kevin Sugihara. Him and the executive suite got a bonus if that film got released before the end of calendar year 2017. That's why that film just got like this, and they constantly got cold feet on Zack Snyder's vision. The reason why Zack Snyder's Justice League happened was because it was new management came in. This was after the sale to AT&T, and you had new management that saw that there was social media engagement for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and if they put the money into this, the algorithm market research said you will get a positive return from this. And guess what? They got exactly just that. Except there's no more. That's the thing. Zack Snyder's Justice League, quote unquote, as a exclusive entity, got to that return. Continuing that, whatever you want to call it, universe, if that's even the right word to use for it, that was not going to bring them returns. But that is a sole one-off that brought them return. And that's the thing.
The thing is though, but once that makes money, like the idea that that's the end of that universe goes out the window. Like the new Flash movie seems like it's a part of that story.
It isn't. It's the same way that like now that like Spider-Man
part of the story.
It isn't. It's the same way that like I know because
it's a soft reboot.
Yes.
That's what they're doing with it.
It's no way homing it. It's like, okay, it's like with Spider-Man now. It's like, okay, you're gonna get all your Raimi villains in, you're gonna get all those characters back in, and it's a way of just doing something clever with the pre-existing IP that the algorithm market research says is now popular, or it still is popular. So now that we have some level of control over it, we can mine it. Again, everybody forgets that in 2010 there was going to be a Spider-Man 4, except Raimi and the studio, Sony, could not come to an agreement, and Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst walked away with Raimi. And then that's when the reboot happened with Andrew Garfield. There was going to be a Spider-Man 4, but now guess what? Tobey Maguire's career has kind of gone like into hibernation. Pretty much all the actors from both the Raimi films and the Mark Webb films kind of have nothing going on right now. It's become profitable for the actors and for the studio to say, let's make a deal. And that's why you're getting this stuff. Again, this is all a calculation. The fact that it's something we enjoy and have nostalgia for is just a benefit for us. Like that.
Topher Grace is going to show up in this movie as Venom too. Like,
is there
going to be multiple Venoms?
No, but we can only hope. We can only hope. There's a scene where like alternate universe Topher Grace is sitting in a lobster tank eating a raw lobster.
Or maybe he gets to hang with Mad Max at some point.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, you guys make fun of Spider-Man 3, but like I don't want to say this, but like the current times makes you nostalgic for Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man
Bring
3,
back Sandman.
I always liked Spider-Man 3. Like I never understood why that film got crapped on, other than the fact that like it was the internet deciding that it was bad.
He danced.
Not anyone particular.
He danced.
Listen,
Bully
Maguire is an internet sensation, and like nothing else out of the Sam Raimi trilogy has made quite the mark on social media as Bully Maguire. So like, listen, like something about that really resonated with the culture, especially in current times. So like we shouldn't.
Okay,
you're right.
Not to be conspiratorial, but anyone ever think the timing of that combined with the fact that Tobey Maguire will be reprising his most famous role in a couple of months, anyone see the timing of this a little suspicious, or is that just me?
That's why No Way Home is getting made.
Bully Maguire has been around for like over a year, so I don't know if that's.
But this has also been like floating around now for over a year. Like what was going to happen with No Way Home? Like this is like I don't know, just the timing of it. Like yes, Spider-Man 3's been around now for 14 years. Like it's not that. It's just the idea that like again, all of this stuff is plugged in. Like the market research, it tells them what to do. None of this is being made because somebody had a good idea.
Do you ever think spoiler alert for The Flash, which I'm not even gonna watch probably, but I saw recently some photos of the 1989 Batmobile from the set.
Yeah.
They seemed like they were officially released because they looked nice. They weren't haphazard cell phone shots. So like when I see that, all it does to me is makes me feel like it's a damn travesty that this is not just a Batman movie. If you're going to go to the trouble of remaking these things and you're going to get Michael Keaton involved, it's just a continued, it's just they're just digging in deeper with their misunderstanding. You know what I mean? Like it's relevant to like everything that we're talking about. It's just like you're 5 inches from the mark, but you don't understand that what we really need is a comic adaptation of The Dark Knight with Michael Keaton, and you would change the world, but you're just too blind to see that that's what you need to do.
Batman gets butts in the seats, man. That's what happens. That's why there's going to be probably they're even trying to get Christian Bale in on it.
Oh,
But the
no
villains,
way.
though.
They got Batfleck going in there.
I want DeVito. I want Tommy Lee Jones. Is he still around?
No, it's gonna be focused. It's gonna be focused on the Flash. It's gonna be him against the Reverse Flash, and then they're gonna have 3. They're trying for 3 Batmans, but they only got 2 already. They got Keaton. They got Affleck.
Yes. We could get Billy D, bringing it back to Star Wars. Maybe he could finally get to be the Two-Face he always wanted to be. I know he did an animated voice, I think.
There's a comic book adaptation about the Billy D Two-Face coming out.
But you know what I mean? Look, they literally have all the parts in place, and they just can't bring themselves to do the right thing. It's tragic. It hurts. Like, if I believed I had a soul, it would hurt my soul. It's like, it's rough to see that they got Keaton signed on. He was saying crazy stuff about is it worth risking my life to film this during the coronavirus? Like, he was just saying really out to lunch stuff. But they got him. And it's like you could just take a pause and write the movie that you need to completely change the industry, but it's just not within them to make that choice. And then I think that completely relates to what we're seeing with Star Wars now. It's like you could literally you could just go out there and look in the environment and see the story that you should be telling, but you just can't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just, again, it boils down to Hollywood now. I don't know. It's a combination of nostalgia and pre-existing familiarity with the IP. It's one or the other.
Yeah, I think it's trying to pull all disparate fans too. I mean, if you think about the whole DC verse, you've got people that are Harley Quinn fans. You got people that like the Flash TV show stuff. You got, I don't know, somebody I guess likes the movies, and of course Batman. There's always Batman fans. Is this their attempt to unite them like Thanos, getting every little fandom in there for one thing?
That's it. That's what they're doing. They even got the TV show Flash going to be on it for a cameo in the movie. Going to reprise that whole Crisis on Infinite Earth scene with Ezra Miller. But no, it's going to be a fun movie. Would I say it's going to win awards? No, none of those movies were going to be winning awards. But
right, but isn't that let's stop for a second and realize that Batman 1989. I know this is a Star Wars show. Batman 1989 is a worldview formulating film. It's up. Say what you want about Tim Burton. A lot of his stuff is you shouldn't be able to tell that easily who directed this movie. Batman 1989 is a special film, and it's just it's really capitalizing on the cast and the design, and Tim Burton sort of deciding hey, let's look at the source material and make something that really sort of speaks to that. And you got to put yourself in the mindset of you have Adam West, and that's in the cultural zeitgeist, it's Adam West, and then Batman 1989 out of nowhere, right? So you really have to appreciate that only the comic book fans are realizing that this is a serious non-comedic character at this point in history. So he's stepping outside of his comfort zone, not making something that's overly stereotypical for his perspective. It's a little bit earlier in his career as well, but we're talking about, this is a real film that changed the industry, and it was a game changer. And we're getting Michael Keaton back and the same designs back, and the movie's called The Flash, It's like, forget the Flash. I don't care who the Flash is. What are you guys doing? This is crazy. You're going to burn your one opportunity to like make like the best Batman sequel ever, period. It's a crime that Tim Burton's not involved regardless. It's like doing Indy 5 without Spielberg. It's like, it's his to destroy. If it's going to fail, he's the one who's supposed to make it fail. It's just like, what are you guys doing? I don't know. It seems criminal to me to like to do it in this way, get all the stars to align perfectly, and it's the Flash.
It's like Ready Player Flash.
It's the only character in the DC that could possibly do it. Only character in DC.
Yeah, but the DC doesn't have an MCU, you know what I mean? Like, they can just do whatever they want. It could just be Tim Burton's Batman 3. It doesn't matter. They put out the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. It was crazy. It didn't fit in with anything else. People liked it.
And it made $1 billion without the help of China, which to this day Hollywood cannot understand.
Yeah, they really should do more study on that, because it's like, it's amazing
I think Hollywood looks at that as if it were an anomaly. They figure it's not. It's like, that was a one-off. They got lucky. That's not the question. Like let's not question it.
Well, it was billed as a one-off too.
Who is?
It was billed as a one-off.
It was, but like, I think the idea is that like, I think they realized that they had like, and plus you look at the talent, like Joaquin Phoenix also isn't the actor to sign like a 3-picture deal.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. I think
that's why he's not Doctor Strange.
Exactly, and I think that's the thing. Like, they're not going to do another Joker with him, because he's not going to do it unless he really feels married to the Thing and he has some level of creative control over it. Like, that's the thing too. It's also very rare to have talent that'll actually stand up. Like, what do you think? If Burton thought he had even like one iota of control over this, what do you think? He wouldn't want to be involved? The problem is that he'd just be told to stand in the corner and just nod for the press photos.
This is why Spielberg's not doing Indy 5, and
exactly. So you're bringing it full circle, which is part of Lucasfilm, which also makes this thing called Star Wars that we have a passing familiarity with. So back to the Wild Bunch. What did everybody think of? I think that's something interesting that happened. Chris, we know you don't like the Wild Bunch. Why is it that you're so frustrated with this show?
I mean, so like, let's boil it down, right? Everybody listening who's been listening for a good while knows that Russ is a more wholesome person than me. Like, everybody can understand that, right? Russ has a family. He's a nice guy. He's nicer than me. He has
Chris
emotions.
is a loner who murders.
Yeah.
Like the homeless people on the side of the road in Canada. Then steals their Star Wars vintage card backs.
Sure. So Russ is like a genuine, real person, right? And before we started,
congratulations, Russ, you are real.
I'm as shocked as you are. So,
and before we started recording, Russ says that, hey, I had to catch up on the Bad Batch just to be able to partake in this conversation. It wasn't grabbing him enough. And this is really what it comes down to, right? It's like, was there a moment in this whole series so far that sort of grabbed you and said, hey, this is real. This content has a soul. There's a narrative here that's worth telling. And for me, that was the first episode and nothing since then.
Chris, they shot Tom Wee.
I was about to say, when you guys were talking about unceremonious deaths of like, Dad, Tom Wee's dead. Like, what are we doing here? That was just so throwaway. And that was okay. They could have made that bigger.
But I love that you're like elevating Tanwi to the importance of the Rancor Keeper, but that's really what you're doing.
Hey, I was gonna say more like Captain Tarpals in the Clone Wars, where Grievous like impales him. But sure, we'll take Rancor Keeper. I think that's even more of a compliment. But
listen, the Rancor Keeper, it's like Lucas has said a substantive comment on why it's interesting that the Rancor Keeper cries when the Rancor dies. That's more than you have for Tanwi, okay? So like I'm just saying, like, you know, Tanwi has a name. That's, other than that,
she's like, not just Clone Keeper.
She barely deserves to have a name. That's all I'm saying.
Hey,
wait till Boba Fett hears about this. This is going to be a whole arc, the Revenge of Tanwi.
That's what the Book of Boba Fett is. The Book of Boba Fett is him getting like avenging Tanwi's death.
I do love the meme. I did love the memes that Daniel Logan himself shared, where it said, "Dad, Tanwi's dead. That was great. But you
That's
know,
great.
but you had to remind people that she was a character that mattered, because she wasn't until the Bad Batch. Because in the Bad Batch, you actually see her. There's literally shots where she's introspectively thinking about what to do, which did not occur in Attack of the Clones. So, like, you know, let's not like blow this out of proportion. I'm just saying, like, the first, like, this is really the for me, the tragedy of the Bad Batch is, like, you would have had, if it was great, you would have had more Knights of Vader episodes talking about it. It's an objective.
That's not true. That's not true.
I
That
believe
is not true.
I believe it, because I don't think you would have been able to resist. Maybe you have like some reasons why to say otherwise.
Because
like,
it's more serial. Okay. As somebody who has like their foot on the pedal of Knights of Vader, it's the idea that like with Mandalorian, those are concentrated like 30-minute episodes, and there's only 8 of them. This is 22 minutes like spread out over like 24 episodes.
Which would mean that you would go every other episode, and which is like
There's not okay. You're both
amount-
right. You're both right and wrong. The Wild Bunch is both like, I think it's stimulating just enough. It's stimulating as much as the Clone Wars was. Like I think I've mentioned a couple times. Like when I was in college, I watched the Clone Wars every single time like an episode debut. Like I stopped what I was doing, whether it be like Friday nights, Saturday mornings, because I know they switched the timing like after a while, and I watched it. Like as an adult in college, I on Saturday mornings watched the Clone Wars, but I just was like, I did it out of like obligatory part of like my brain when it came to Star Wars. Like there's a reason why. Like everyone sits there goes, "Wow, the 2008 series is so great," and I'm like, it was good for the time. Like it has no lasting power like the 2003 series has. It's not. It doesn't elevate like the whatever you want to call it, the brand or the franchise.
Okay, but like like I get what you're saying, but like the 2008 series, like, so like if the only thing that like got through to me as a Star Wars fan was the first episode of the Bad Batch, that's like 1 out of 12 so far. Like that, where I was actually like literally couldn't take my eyes off the screen. It's literally, we're talking about the first episode. And when I look at Clone Wars 2008, it's a higher percentage than 1 out of 12.
All right.
That's all.
I gotta say, there's sequences of it that I really do enjoy. I do like the episodes, but yeah, it definitely, I'm not drawn there every week like, oh my god, Bad Batch. I think I actually got distracted by Loki. If I look back, I think about the time Loki started, I kind of just switched my Disney Plus brain to watching that instead, and now it's over. I'm going back. I have a couple of notes from kind of binging a lot of them today, at least the more recent ones. Has anyone? This is about Cad Bane's droid. Okay, he's featured pretty heavily in a couple of them, keeping watch of the captured Omega. He keeps calling him Mr. Bane. Has anyone ever said Mr. in Star Wars?
First of all, his name is Chris Griffin.
But seriously, has anyone?
Did you elaborate on that, Chris?
Or this? You talk about Chris Griffin. Is that the droid's name? Really?
No, it's Seth Green.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
From, you know, his most
the guy
famous
from Detours, right?
His most famous credit.
Somewhere Zenger's ears are picking up right now.
Yeah, he's the Cha-Ching guy. I've heard of him.
Yeah, aren't we supposed to have Zenger by now? Like, you know, that'd be great.
Zenger's okay. I want everybody to know that like we try to get Zenger, except podcasting quality is horrible when you're riding a bike 24/7.
And it's broken, so I think he's just walking.
Yeah, we're all.
He's in the
you know,
morning.
anyone who follows Zenger on social media knows that we're living in hot Zenger summer.
It's Zeng Boy summer, of course, and his weight loss journey is being put out for us, which is very nice. I definitely support.
I can't hate. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, he's literally riding a bicycle right now. That's why he's not here. He wanted to be here.
Okay, maybe the Mr. thing was kind of stupid too, but they also, in one of the episodes, when they're talking to that one senator with looks like the Monopoly Man, the big fat Monopoly Man senator.
The one they rescue.
Yes. Where he talks about the draconian laws of the Empire, I was like, can you say draconian in Star Wars? I mean, that's so Earth-based. I know we have Christian hell already, but I was surprised to hear draconian dropped.
I mean, there's literally
doesn't
dragons.
bother me.
Yeah, there's already like so many dragons in Star Wars, so I'm fine.
All
What?
right, I guess so.
What?
Like
What
like the
do dragons
brother
have to do with this?
wasn't the brother a dragon? Draconian?
No, that's oh god, Chris. That's like derivative of like oh god, of like Greek. Oh god, I don't know.
Oh, so it's not actually from dragon?
No, it's
No, I
Draconian.
think
Draconian.
English lessons.
It comes
on
from the
19th.
7th century BC Athenian legislator who created a written code of law. Draco's
Yeah.
code was intended to clarify pre-existing laws,
What
but
you
its
should-
severity
what
is
you
what
should-
made it really memorable.
What
Wow,
you should have
I'm
said, Chris, is
I
that Draco
can't express to you
Malfoy
how
wasn't in
embarrassed
this.
I am. I can't express to you.
You
how
should have
embarrassed
said this isn't Harry Potter, Star Wars. Like, come on, Kathleen Kennedy, get your act together.
Yeah, that was Count Dooku Jedi Lost. It was Harry Potter Star Wars. This is the Bad Batch.
If they would have
Damn
said
right.
Duconian laws, man, that's stay in Star Wars. That would have been great. These Duconian laws, they'd be like, wait, you mean Count Dooku? Really?
I do love the fact that the word draconian brought you out of it, Russ. Like that speaks to me on some
That is a
level.
weird thing to put me up, but I was like, that's too. But I mean, Christian Hell doesn't take me out when Han Solo says it. I don't know.
It's Corellian hell, but yeah.
Okay, but getting back to the point of like the Wild Bunch, and like again, I think this show, it's like every Star Wars animated show, like for the last almost 15 years now, it takes time to get started, whether it be Clone Wars season 1, Rebels season 1. This first season always takes time to get like its footing. So I'm willing to forgive it. I am pretty engaged with this relative to like other first seasons. Like the first season of Rebels at the time, I was just so like I couldn't care less about that. I enjoyed the time the first season of the Clone Wars. It was fun. It was exciting to see Star Wars back in 2008. But like this, I have to say, like I am pretty engaged with it. It's like I like what's going on with like Crosshair. Like I think the Bad Batch are the least interesting thing about their own show. I kind of like everything else surrounding it. Like, even though, like, obviously seeing like Hera, Chopper, that's fan service, but at least it makes sense for them to be there. Like that's the thing. Like, you have like the Bad Batch. The problem is that their character archetypes, which is like decent when they have like a one-off episode, part of like season 7 of the Clone Wars, but like they can't just keep being these two-dimensional characters. Like you have like again like how Zenger characterized them last year. Like you have a Hulk clone, you have Smart clone, you have like you go through the entire list and it's like Rambo clone, and like Rambo clone now is becoming just like Dad clone. And it's like, okay, like you need to put some flesh on the bone of these characters. Not that it has to happen all at once, but you need a little bit more of that. Like not every episode can then be just them doing a job and then, okay, we're moving on.
Every episode is somehow now Omega. They thought that she'd be learning from them, but turns out they have a few things to learn from her too.
Woo! Woo! Like, I want like a laugh track and like that thing you hear like on like Full House or Married with Children, where the audience is like, mm-hmm.
You should never put children in in mortal danger of gunfire. That's all I'm trying to say.
Can we please talk about how like basically that's like the like trauma that led Anakin on his journey? The fact that like Qui-Gon put him like in the cockpit of a ship during like insurrection on a sovereign world.
Do you ever think about the
you
fact
can do
that
the most damage in there, Anakin? Please.
Do you ever think about the fact that episode 1 could not be made today? #Slave 1.
Oh God.
Yeah, I guess not. I don't. Yeah.
What was the meme that was floating around a couple of weeks ago? I got my name is Boba Fett Starship.
I'm a person. Sure.
I mean, it would have been challenging to sort of navigate that narrative in 2021. It's not even a controversial statement.
Just like real quick though, to like give both sides of the argument to like the Slave 1 controversy, is that like on one hand, the ship is still called like Slave 1 pretty much across the board with the exception of like the Lego packaging. But at the same time though, like nobody remembers this, but like in the like lead up to Rogue One, like it was like November 2016. Like I think it was like it was like Star Wars launch bay at the theme parks where like they had like a couple of the Death Trooper costumes on display, but like the little like inscription plaque in front of it didn't say Death Trooper. it was like Night Trooper, and apparently like somebody asked like the theme park people for clarification why they had the wrong name, and it was like, oh yeah, we thought the name Death was a little too intimidating for like the Star Wars brand. And everyone's just like do you not realize like there's the Death Star,
The Life Star, yeah. Say the Angel
Like-
Troopers, like what do you call them?
but that was the thing though, like Disney gets on these weird kicks sometimes, and like that's the thing. So like I could see somebody like in consumer products part of Disney or like Lucasfilm like licensing being like, yeah, just call it this, like there's something they have in mind, I don't know what's happening. Then there's the thing too that like on all Lego Star Wars like vehicles, almost all of them are called like a physical description of what they are. It's very rare to see the actual name of the ship. Like this was a couple
I get
days-
it. I get listen, I get this argument. Like I totally understand like why as someone like as a company like Disney, why hey, maybe we shouldn't, because first of all, this is a sort of second tier spaceship from 1979 or 80. We probably shouldn't put the biggest words on this packaging of a product we're trying to sell as the Disney Corporation saying Slave One, even though they did it last year on the Vintage Collection Slave One. Never mind that.
That's
So like
still up on HasLab, by the way. I just look at the Hasbro site and they still have it
Hasbro
listed as
policy
a
order your Slave One. Yep. But you know, I totally get that, but it's just like, what did you think you guys bought? Like you know, it's those dark like edgy, really mildly edgy corners that like keep people interested and engaged in this sort of thing.
But
And
just,
it's like,
okay.
I think we're gonna find out that McClunky is like a racial slur, so it's okay to just murder Greedo. That could be it. Like Greedo was super racist. He should not have said that. That's why it's okay if Han murdered him.
Who says McClunky? Wasn't that in The Mandalorian, McClunky?
it was Bib Fortuna. Maybe.
Yeah, fat Bib Fortuna says McClunky. That's why he had to die also.
That's true. That's the
You
famous
uncovered
last
it,
words
Russ.
now. I know. God dang it. Give me a second.
But just like I think Chris brought. Thank you. Okay, but to bring up Chris's point, like the thing about like, oh, like what did you get yourself involved with and like different things on packaging. Chris and I being like the most hardcore of the hardcore collectors here, with the exception of the Mary Suzanne curator on our left.
Absolutely. Don't forget.
It's the idea, Chris, is that like you said, like the vintage collection box for the Slave One like proudly states what it is. Then you have the Lego version. You brought up a really good avenue for this, Chris. And this is the idea that like Slave One is the idea that like, I'm sorry, when Lego puts their merchandise, that's available at Walmart, Target, across the board. Vintage Collection Slave One, you'll be lucky if you find it at like a boutique action figure like reseller.
I bought mine from a comic book shop.
Exactly. Perfect. But look at it this way. In the age that we currently live in with social media, all it takes is one, oh God, I really don't want to say this word. I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to use the right word. Instigator. That when the Book of Boba Fett debuts sometime in December, is going to take a picture of the packaging. Let's just say, hypothetically, that Boba Fett Starship on the Lego packaging does say Slave One, just hypothetically in this scenario. And it says Slave One. All it takes is one instigator doing this, and it becomes a PR fire they have to put out.
Which is why it's going to be called the Phoenix One.
Exactly. Like, I know, like, it's either going to be given a new name, the ship, or it's not going to be named at all, which is probably the latter because it's the path of least resistance.
Well, if they didn't need to say the name in The Empire Strikes Back or The Mandalorian Season 2, I don't see why they suddenly need to. You know, that's really where I don't like it, when there's this overt wink at the audience, right? So we didn't need to name it for 40 years. Never mind the fact that parents in 1980 had to go out to the store and buy something that said Slave One in big bold letters, even though they had no clue what that meant or it was never said in the film. Parents still did that and their kids thought it was great.
Same thing happened in 2002, Chris.
And 13 just now. Yeah, but you know, no one complained, but you know, it's just the fact that this happened all those times for 40 years Even, Disney era Hot Wheels say Slave One on them. It's just like, never mind that. They're worried about somebody complaining, one person causing a social media storm. I get it. I totally get it. But it's just like,
but I think they're not.
I just hope they don't acknowledge it. I just hope it's not acknowledged in canon, because that's just going to be such a wink at the audience in a way that it's almost like if they change the name of the Slave One in canon and the Book of Boba Fett, it's going to be like right up there with when Rose Tico says, Leia wants me to do some other stuff, so I can't come with you for this movie. You know what I mean?
As she looks directly into the camera.
It's going to be right there with that. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, we heard that you guys wouldn't like this, so we're not going to do it.
Oh boy. But yeah, call it the McClunky one in honor of his fallen friend Greedo, and it's a new ship. I'm with Joe on that. Yeah, get him a new ship. Call it that.
Congratulations on being like epically wrong, but that's fine. It's not gonna be
wow, Chris is just gonna die on this hill. Like Chris is like, I don't like this fan theory. I am going to let everybody know that I do not agree. I do not endorse.
The chances of it being a new ship are 3,720 to 1.
Look, they're cloners and damn good ones. They can clone a ship.
When the Book of Boba Fett comes out and someone says, "Hey, you got a new ship," I'm gonna sit there and be like, "Okay."
I still think, okay, you know what my theory is? Now remember, Mandalorian Din Djarin got his ship blown up, which you can now probably buy. Oh, God, it's gonna be fun to see those things. Once the HasLab.
HasLab, no refunds. They send you a box of ashes. Be like, haha.
I love that. That should be like
pieces.
That should be the packaging
knob.
variant.
The knob survived though.
and the spear.
Ooh.
But like no, like I don't even know if that was a tangent. I completely forgot where I was going with this. You know what? Proceed, everybody. I completely forgot.
We were talking about HasLab.
You were talking about Din Djarin lost his ship.
Oh yeah. I still think that I still think they're gonna kill Boba Fett off and give. That's what I thought was gonna happen toward the end of season 2. I could see Din Djarin getting the Slave One. I could see Boba Fett dying in the Book of Boba Fett. I can see that.
I don't think it's even Boba Fett. I don't think it's Boba Fett. I don't think it's Boba Fett.
It's Commander Cody.
No.
It's Hunter.
It's Hunter.
Hunter, we've gone through this, Joe. Hunter has like a giant black scar across his face, or like birthmark.
So does Boba Fett.
He doesn't have a bandana.
He has a bandana and he has paint on his face.
He's got a Manda-danda, whatever. Oh, sorry.
Oh my god. I want the Havoc Marauder. I want that as the next HasLab project.
I'm just curious to see who else is going to cameo on the continuation squad.
Oh,
yeah,
that's 4 episodes. Yeah,
they are checking the boxes. Is Zeb going to get featured as like a young kid or something? And
they're going to have a checklist that comes out online.
Or is Omega Sabine? Does Omega grow up to be Sabine?
I think she's the armorer from The Mandalorian.
Oh.
And I think that's what Hunter is going to do. He's going to find Omega again. And are those truly Mandalorians, or are they clones that rescued Din Djarin?
Oh, I'm so confused.
Okay, so not to jump too far ahead, but considering there's probably not going to be another Knights of Vader episode until the ending of this season, what is there going to be their Luke Skywalker in the hallway moment of the Bad Batch?
Ahsoka. She hasn't shown up yet.
They did that for Rebels, though. That was the season 1 finale of Rebels. I think they'd be afraid to do that again.
I think it'll be Vader.
So
I think it'll be Vader. How about
really?
that? We get to see Vader sent on his first mission. How about that? I don't know if that lines up with canon comics, but I think at some point they're gonna do something to go.
But I don't
Hunter's
know
gonna fail. Oh, I'm sorry. Bullseye's gonna fail, and they're gonna have to get into deeper Empire stuff.
I don't. But that's the thing, though. But that Hauser. I don't know about Vader, because Vader is almost exclusively a Jedi hunter. I don't think he would come after them. I don't think so. I think that's below. I think a renegade squadron of clones, that's not a Vader thing. That's below him.
I guess you're right.
That's the thing. Vader. Oh God! Remember, Vader's also being saved for the Kenobi series. So I would imagine he's in a very similar position to other characters where he's off limits for other media.
Yeah, I guess that would make Obi-Wan off limits for this media as well.
That's what I think. I don't know I think the Bad Batch for the time being, like I don't know what the like season 1 finale like crescendo is going to be. I really don't, considering like we've kind of like sprinkled in a lot of cameos. Like if in all honesty, I would have figured that Hera would have been something that would have saved for the season 1 finale. I don't know who that big one is unless it's going to be something very tangential like Boba Fett. I could see Boba Fett showing up at the end of this, especially to how they went from saying, "Oh, Boba Fett is the alpha" to her omega, as Tom Wee looks directly into the camera and then gets shot like in the chest.
And he's got Chewbacca and Carbonite, so we can get our Chewbacca, and then R2-D2 helps Chewbacca escape, but he doesn't remember him later.
Yeah, we are due probably for a C-3PO R2-D2 like R2-D2 reference. We should be due for that. But yeah, I don't know. Bad
Yeah,
Batch
we
is,
can
like,
finally get our C-3PO hallway scene that we all have been waiting for. We've got Vader.
You might
Luke,
not you might not recognize me because I do not have a gold arm.
Yeah, you might not recognize me with my Darth Maul spider legs. And
that should be the next HasLab, folks. I want that. Chris, is there any other collecting news we should talk about beyond just like Hauser ballast? Like, is there anything else that you want to talk about, like HasLab, like Rancor?
Yeah, well, HasLab Rancor is like if Black Series weren't hot garbage and I didn't stop collecting it already, I would be very interested in the Black Series Rancor HasLab, because who doesn't want the third giant Rancor expensive product and released in the last 2 years? Tom Spina with Bad Robot did one. I feel like Sideshow did a studio scale Rancor within the last couple years. It's like if you want a giant Rancor taking up like a interior design level presence in your house, these options have been out there for ages already, and this one is going to be like a little bit more, how do you say, a little bit more pedestrian than those two options which recently occurred. So it's not a surprise, because they did show off a big 6-inch, or I guess you'd say 12th scale Rancor at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019, and I think they showed off a Bib Fortuna at that point too, which I think Bib Fortuna was recently announced for Vintage Collection and Black Series, if I'm not mistaken, which that's a good idea. That's about
they had
time.
to get him out before
Yeah.
they fattened him up so they didn't have to waste extra plastic later.
Yeah,
they knew he was going to come back really big.
Completely right, but it's a shame, because really what we all want is the episode 1 version of Matt Wood, Bib Fortuna, not the
that
one.
horror
Yeah.
show. That's too spooky for this podcast. Stop it.
Yeah, so it does make you. Think about this for a second. Bib Fortuna had the same job from the day of the Boonta Eve pod race until basically after the original trilogy, which is like pretty impressive.
Hey, Master Domo is a good title.
Yeah.
Get that. Master Domo.
Yeah. Exactly. It's probably been like something like 14 years since we've had like a 3 3/4 Bib Fortuna that was like actually a new sculpt. So I can get behind that. But the Rancor, it's kind of a weird thing. If you want a giant Rancor, like there's a bunch out there in this borderline exact same size that are a lot more screen accurate. And you're not going to be like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, this is going to be a statement piece where it's like, people come into your house are going to see this Rancor. So like, you're really making a lifestyle choice by pre-ordering this thing.
It's kind of like a 6-inch first order TIE fighter.
It's going to be about that big. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it going to be bigger than the TIE fighter?
It's going to be right in that.
It's going to fit in the cockpit.
Yeah. If you look at your 3 3/4 Rancor and TIE fighter, there, the footprint is not dissimilar. So it's going to be.
I just want to say, like, my favorite like action figure Rancor is still the one from like the Force Unleashed that's like neon colored. It has the little guy riding it.
That's the only one I have. And it's very interesting when back, I don't know if it's only Legends, but when the Felucians were like mushroom people, like I'm fully on board with a man made of mushrooms riding a Rancor with a saddle on top. Like nothing makes me happier than that. That's just perfection. So
Zenger, if Zenger was here, man, we're so close to talking about Starkiller. It's like it's right there.
Yeah, Starkiller someday will. I believe Starkiller will get a Black Series figure someday, but that'll be good for the people who feel like collecting something that's already been put out in 3 or 10 years ago.
Speaking of Starkiller in action figure form, I think, God, since we recorded last, they finally put up that Old Republic Trooper for sale, and I made sure I got 3 of them. It doesn't come out until sometime like in 2027. But I pre-ordered 3 of them.
Wow.
The most exciting thing about that is that there was a recent Hasbro Q&A where not only did
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, not only did Guy McFace, I wish I could remember his name.
Now, that's a deep cut reference.
I wish I could remember his name to give him full credit on being like
Mr. Hasbro Live Man.
Yeah, Joe Hasbro Star Wars accidentally said that the Rancor is the HasLab, which he wasn't supposed to reveal, and he accidentally said, "Oh, with the Rancor, we're probably gonna get wider distribution for the EU," and it's like, boom, you weren't supposed to do that. Hilarious. And it's just like, what's the big surprise? It's a monster that is not named on screen, much like the Slave One from 1983. Let's keep this big secret for HasLab, a massive, like, oh man, we weren't supposed to reveal that yet, but he accidentally revealed it on the stream, and then he at the end of the stream said, "Oh, I might have mentioned a character name that, we're not trying to reveal anything yet. You said it, dude. Like, it's over." So he's covering his tracks. It's lovely to see. I love to see it. It's great. Don't do like extended live streams and expect you're going to maintain the party line the whole time. So like, he revealed the HasLab early. They put out StarWars.com put out a picture of the Jabba's of the gate that reveals the Rancor in the movie. So it's pretty much done deals. They showed it in 2019 at a San Diego Comic-Con. The HasLab's a Rancor. So like, that's awesome. That's fun. It's funny that he accidentally revealed it. And on the same live stream, he's talking about some of the there's so many gems from this live stream. He's talking about how if you want to build, there's a HasLab, there's a Hasbro Pulse exclusive Black Series Cantina bar where it's like, by the way, you have to buy 2 and have 2 Ponda Babas and 2 Dr. Evans to build the full bar. Like, there's so many classic great things like that. Like, order 2 of the same thing to complete the bar.
It's like that thing they're doing with Bespin, right? That terrible freeze chamber.
Yeah.
It looks like the inside of a lamp.
Yeah, they're like, literally, all you old dudes who love this stuff, buy 2 or we're going to stop making it. That's the attitude we're getting on a lot of these things.
Yeah, you guys are dying off. We need you guys to start buying 2. And 2, maybe 2 to open, 1 to save, you nerds.
Exactly. And then getting back to the Old Republic Trooper, which is like, you have to think back really hard to when like the expanded universe like had a soul and there was interesting stories going on, and you had the Old Republic MMO, which was a pale shadow of the Knights of the Old Republic RPG even at the time, but it was still way better than anything we're getting now. And you have this Old Republic Trooper that came out back in the day on a expanded universe card, and it was really limited release, and it's this really sought after figure that won this fan vote. And the interesting thing on this Hasbro live Q&A that they did with the same one where they accidentally revealed that the Rancor is the HasLab project, he said that they haven't decided yet whether the Old Republic Trooper is going to come out on a expanded universe card back or a Star Wars card back, which, for those of you guys not paying attention, all of the expanded universe sort of hard to find a place characters have been coming out on a Star Wars card in the vintage collection because they just don't know what to call it anymore because they erased the expanded universe. And like, is it canon? What do we call it? Do we make a Galaxy's Edge card back for Hondo and Akka? They don't know what to do anymore, right? So they
right, like kind of like Dr. Afra, right? Like, they don't really know where quite to put her.
Yeah, they just put it on a Star Wars card back. They said we haven't figured out if we're going to make an expanded universe card back yet or a Star Wars card back. That was, that beats the Rancor slip up as far as I'm concerned, because it's like they have this my guess would be either it's just going to be a Star Wars card back, or they're going to make a new one that's like a Legends card back, because that would tie in with their current marketing of they're hustling these old expanded universe books as like essential Legends right now. Like the original Thrawn trilogy is part of it, where they're making these new terrible Photoshop vomit covers for like good books that came out that are way better than anything they've put out since they bought Lucasfilm, and they're calling it Essential Legends. So like my guess would be that they're going to make a card back that references Legends, because that would sort of connect the like it put in print the idea of these two separate timelines, where if they say expanded universe, that's not a term they're currently using. So my guess will be Star Wars card back for this Old Republic trooper, or a new Legends card back.
Okay, I'm real quick, because I know like we're going to go on almost 2 hours soon. It's that question of like, I'm glad I know we referenced it like a while ago now, but the idea that like some of the like Legends EU books are getting like re-released with like the third time now they have new art. But the thing that I find interesting about this is like your usual thing of like taking the Kenobi book and slapping that little yellow banner on it with the original artwork. This is new artwork in these books that they're deeming essential. Whoever Chris says, is that the word they're using, essential?
It's something like, if it's not like, I believe it's essential. It might not be.
Whatever, for the sake of argument, let's just say it is. I find it interesting, like whereas like with all the old like kind of like they changed the cover, like they just put that little yellow like banner on the Legends book, but just like the books are more or less the same. I find it, and those books are pretty much only showed up at like your booksellers, your Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, so on and so forth. These like re-releases of like key books like the Mace Windu book, the OG Thrawn trilogy, they're showing up at like Walmart and Target. And you know how like hard it is to get a book on a shelf at a Target and a Walmart, because that's like a tenth of an aisle. And those books are on display too. Like they're usually part of an end cap if your store has that sort of thing still. And that's the thing I find interesting, which means Lucasfilm is ginning something up with these particular stories. And the fact that like on like that third Thrawn trilogy book, Last Command, we see Mara Jade on the cover, leads me to believe that she's going to show up at some point. Again, strong, powerful female character, seems like made to order for Lucasfilm to read, like to kind of just serve her up on a silver platter for us. And then the other one I find interesting is the fact that Mace Windu is showing up again. Not showing up, but just is getting the spotlight put on him again. And think about
okay, yeah, I totally get you. Like, did anyone read Shatterpoint? Does anyone know if Shatterpoint's actually good?
Shatterpoint, it doesn't matter. The fact is that you know what that is? That's called a test balloon to see if there's interest. Once again, this goes back to market research. The market research says a Mace Windu, Samuel L. Jackson thing has potential feasibility as an upcoming project, but they're not entirely sure of it. So you know what you do? Take that book, re-release it. It's a safe way to see if it's and you put a little extra of a spotlight on it to see if people respond to it. Like this, not to go back.
He's the big reveal now. He's going to be the big reveal. Bad Batch.
Oh God!
There you go, Mace Windu.
God.
You walked yourself up to it. This is why the show has to go for 2 hours, so you can get yourself.
Darn
to this
it,
place.
Russ! Don't give them ideas.
There's only 4 episodes left. They can't do it now. Either Mace Windu's in it or not.
God.
We've got a new mission. We have to save someone. He survived the order. Let's see who it is.
All right. So I looked at that picture you posted, Zach, and it does say the Essential Legends Collection.
Does it? Okay, so Chris was right.
So
not the regressed universe or anything.
Which means that's something that they're going to be cherry picking from.
Yeah.
It's literally Thrawn trilogy and Shatterpoint, which is an odd choice.
No, it's again. This is what this company Disney's been doing. Okay, I would imagine. Please raise your hand if you've ever been to Disney World before.
Raise.
Ditto.
That's it. Okay, Mr. Yazzo.
No, I've never have.
Have you ever been to? Have you? You know what the ride Splash Mountain is at least.
Yeah, from the classic movie, right?
Yeah, don't spoil it just yet, Russ. All right, this is the thing. Song of the South. I know as of now, I think Disney's taking Splash Mountain. They're retheming it to Princess and the Frog, but that's neither here nor there. That ride was built in '89, but they based it off characters from Song of the South, but exclusively the animated parts: Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, Brer Bear. But what happened was, even in the '80s, that was a controversial film. But good old Michael Eisner, they're like, okay, he's like, we're gonna do this with like Song of the South characters, and everyone was just like kind of like grit their teeth, and they're like, oh,
Wait,
really
Uncle
good idea.
Remus? We're bringing Uncle Remus back?
No, Uncle Remus didn't come back. Just the animated characters. I'm sorry, Russ. I sometimes you're too ahead of the curve even for me.
Sorry.
So you have to get some Song of the South clips on the soundboard, Russ. That's how Knights of Vader really. Russ is like, no, thank you. Hey, Zippity Doo Dah is a classic, Russ. Come on.
You'd all recognize the song whether you even have heard of the movie name before or not.
It's too McClunky.
Zippity Doo Dah. I know all the words of that song. Anyway, the point of this being is that like back in like the mid '80s, the Disney company was very nervous about basing a new theme park attraction around Song of the South. So you know what they did? In like '85, '86, they re-released it in the theaters, and guess what? It made like $20 million, and no controversies like arose from it. So you know what the company did? They said, okay, we're going to go ahead with this. And fast forward 30 years later, the attraction is still there. And just after 30 years, is it finally getting a retheme? And I think that's the point with these like Legends Essential like books, is that they're just test balloons. They're there to see if the market is there for it, if the fans will react, if the normies will react. And I still think that we're going to get some form of Star Wars project, especially now considering the universal like acclaim Luke Skywalker at the end of the Mandalorian season 2 got. I could very well see them doing something like that with the OG, adapting being the key word here, the OG Thrawn trilogy, and making that kind of part of the Ahsoka series.
100% believe it. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'd see it. I think they could even tie it into the sequels, and if they wanted to, they already have their way in with Thrawn. Yeah.
And plus, never mind. Like, think about how many Thrawn books have there been now? Like we're up to the ninth Thrawn
trilogy.
book.
Yeah, there's 9 trilogies.
Yes, just like Star Wars, it's the 9th trilogy. All right. Anything else about Star Wars, or are we gonna put this episode out of its misery?
No, I think I said my piece for now. I'm excited. I will say I am excited to see where the Bad Batch goes. And man, if it really is Mace Windu, wow, Zach called it.
No, Russ, you called it. Please, the honor is all yours, sir. Much like how you don't want Song of the South on your soundboard. Please don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Yazzo, you have anything else about Star Wars?
Actually, no. I think I'm good.
All right, Mr. Porteous. I know you have lots more for Star Wars, but anything that can't wait until the next episode of Knights of Vader, 7 months from now.
Yeah, well, because we have no idea when that is, I'm gonna remind everyone. You know, it's nebulous. It's like we're in the world between worlds here, right? So like you're gonna go ahead and you're listening to this. You're still here 2 hours in, whatever it is. You're gonna go ahead and follow the KOV podcast on Instagram.
Save that for the end, sir. Save that for the end.
Well, it's gonna come twice. So there's that. There's that, and you're gonna also remember that when the Slave One is renamed canonically in the Book of Boba Fett, that's gonna be Phoenix One. You heard it here first, and you know, because he's gonna just be so overwhelmed with the emotion of surviving the Sarlacc pit that it's just gonna be viewed as a spiritual rebirth for Boba Fett. So he just won't be able to resist naming it something so cliche as that. So get ready for it. Well, the money's on the table. Like, it's Phoenix One. Get into it. Get ready for the Lego sets and all that.
My guess is Liberator One.
Did y'all miss the point where Boba Fett became a saint and a good character? Because it happened somewhere between the end of Return of the Jedi and the start of Mandalorian season 2. But never mind that. He's a good dude now, and we're gonna respect all of his choices as an adult person with executive function. So never mind that. So yeah, I think I really appreciate getting together and talking about the Bad Batch. And you know, it's much like I imagine. Like I don't want to put on rose colored glasses and say the 2008 Clone Wars series was way better than this, I feel like the Bad Batch is as good as I would feel about like mid series run Clone Wars. Like, it's fine. There's some episodes that are like, why did you spend my 20 minutes this way? But there's there's a few gems, which for me currently is limited to the first episode, but I respect the belief structure that allows other people to think there's more than just the first episode that was good. So I've said my piece for now.
How about that? All right. So concludes this episode of the Knights of Vader Star Wars podcast. Check out the Facebook group. Type in Knights of Vader in the Facebook, and chances are you will find us there waiting for you. At KOV Podcast on Instagram. That is Chris's baby. Please inquire with Chris for any Knights of Vader Instagram nonsense. If you like what you hear, please rate, review, subscribe to us on iTunes or whatever podcasting platform you're currently listening to us on. Thank you to An Inspiriority Complex for providing our theme song. Check out the show notes to hear more from them. If you're interested in hearing me talk some more, come check me out on the Cinemoddities podcast as the 2001 Fort year continues, as Rob and I talk about blockbusters from 20 years ago. I kind of don't know what's coming out tomorrow off the top of my head. It might be, I don't know, Planet of the Apes? I don't know. It might be Marky Mark Planet of the Apes. Chris, you listen to Cinemoddities. Has that come out yet?
Marky Mark Planet of the Apes has not come out yet, and I could not tell you how excited I am for that, because like that is by far and away the most underrated Planet of the Apes film by far. So like,
is it? Is it?
Well, you know what, you guys might have already recorded that yet and been completely wrong about it, but like go ahead and rewatch all of the other 9 Planet of the Apes movies and tell me that one's not underrated. I'm done. That's fine. I'm gonna
something. It's under something. I just don't know if it's rated.
Brought it back to Tim Burton, man. The through line always.
Actually, I think the next episode is Jurassic Park 3, then Planet of the Apes.
I'm so glad that you watched that through the lens of the fact that Alan Grant has repressed his homosexuality as well. I'm so glad you finally watched it with that context in mind, and I can't wait to hear what you thought.
Were you? Oh god, I hate dinosaurs. Oh my god, I hate dinosaur movies. Yeah, all right. Chris Porteous, you already plugged your part of the podcast. Anything else you'd like to plug while you're here?
Yeah, check me out at the Chris Porteous on Instagram. I finally started posting again after several months, so I would appreciate some follows over there. Thanks.
All right, Russ Ryan, who just recorded a fun episode on the Allagash abductions as part of the Unbelievers podcast. What are you up to?
Oh, yeah. Check out Unbelievers Podcast. We got new episodes every week. This week we were talking about an alien contactee named Dorothy Azat, and she's got some remarkable footage. Yeah, Unbelievers Pod on Twitter. Check us out.
And Mr. Yazo, when you're not here telling us that Boba Fett is not Boba Fett, where can people find you?
You can find me here, and also on eBay. I have my eBay store, Mui's Vault 12601. Sell vintage collectibles.
Yes. Joe sells. What was that?
I just said followed. I thought it'd be funny, like I buy vintage nonsense. Although I've not reviewed Joe's eBay site yet, so like
I want on record that like I found a new like Batman Batmobile from like Robert Pattinson Batman, and I found like a couple of them, so I bought one for Joe and brought it to him. He's like, "Yeah, I already have one." I'm like, "Oh." He's like, "Yeah, I bought 5 of them." I'm like, "Oh." I'm
you
like,
know something.
I know. Joe is kind of up there with you, Chris. Like, you just understand, maybe less so specifically on Star Wars collectibles, but like as collectibles as a whole, he's definitely more your tier than like my tier. But yeah, that's a conversation for another day. Alrighty, folks. Good night.
1, 2, 3,
Goodbye. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Remember Alderaan! Down with the Empire!
Thank you, Luke and Russ.